much more fearful.
And both of you have medical conditions, so we can't have it.
Yeah, she's going to stay.
Yeah.
And I said, you're adults, but I am too. You can't be visitors. And, it's a shame. I know they're working on has anything to do with the filming. It may have something to do with the filming.
Good morning, and welcome to Mount Vernon Unitarian Church. I am Linda Jemison, and I am so happy to be here with you. We're all in the same room, and we're wearing pants. Wow. Before I begin speaking, I really have to thank the wonderful tech team we have here. They've cleverly made it so that they won't appear on camera. But Linda Walton, Raleigh Romine, Marty Breddick, and Tom Ruby are sitting over here, and they're making sure that you can hear and see us. So thank you all very much. Whether you are new to this community or a longtime member, no matter what propelled you to set aside this time and join us in worship, know that you are welcome here. We especially welcome our visitors this morning, both physically present or virtually joining. If you want to be in touch with us, please send us an email to info@mvuc.org. We are a community dedicated to welcoming the stranger and working for justice. We gather here to recommit ourselves to the mission of supporting one another in our spiritual journeys, working for the care of the earth, and building the common good. This morning's service is presented by our good friend and church member, Dr. Betsy Yarrison. Announcements are in your order of service, whether on your phone, in your hand, or in the email you clicked on to join this multi-platform service. I would really like to mention the announcements again. The announcements are in the Sunday bulletin, and they print out to about 4 pages, and it's chock full of things that you should know that are going on at the church, things that you might be asked to make a decision on, and things that you'll want to do. So please keep this in mind and read it thoroughly. I want to remind you that for those gathering in person, we require masks to be worn at all times and for 6 feet of distance to be observed. For both those in person and virtual, we will have a Zoom gathering just after the service for socializing. Thank you, Linda Burke. If you're at home, just jumped over to that. The link should be in your email, and if you are here, you can jump on that via your phone or socialize here in person. Lastly, please continue to look to your emails, phones, and the website for continued updates about worship and other church happenings. And know if you are ever in need, your church staff is an email or phone call away. And at the beginning of this holiday season, let us again, I can't say this enough, rejoice that we are together. I invite you now to take a deep breath with me as we enter into this time of worship.
We light our chalice today in honor of Hanukkah, which begins tonight and runs through December the 6th. Tonight, Jewish people throughout the world will light the first candle on the Hanukkah to celebrate the victory of the Maccabees over the Greeks and the miracle of the temple oil, which you'll hear about in just a minute from Linda Jemison. This candle here is called the shamash. You can see it has its own candle holder, taller than the others because it's different. The shamash isn't a sacred candle. It's a worker candle that's used to light the others and to do any other jobs that you need a candle for, because you can't use the sacred candles for ordinary work. I'm going to use the shamash today to light our chalice to remind us that Judaism is probably the oldest and certainly one of the most venerable of the 6 sources of our living tradition. Welcome, Hanukkah. What does the magical story of Hanukkah tell us? Hanukkah is about the little light that sheds a great light. The ritual of lighting the menorah is an act of publicizing one's belief in the constant availability of hope. As each generation passes this ancient custom on, parents are constantly teaching their children that the battle can be won, that darkness can be overcome. Hanukkah stands as a symbol of what is possible. Please remain seated as we listen to our opening hymn. For safety's sake, those of you here in the chapel cannot sing along with us, but you're welcome to hum along if you wish. That's especially nice if you don't actually know the words.
As you are able, and recite with me the covenant found in our hearts and in our order of service. Love is the teaching of this church. The quest of truth is its daily task, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve life in community, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. This is our covenant with each and with all. You may be seated. This is the holiday season. At Halloween, we greeted our friends with Happy Halloween. The day after, for the Day of the Dead, we said, Feliz Dia de los Muertos. Did my best there, folks. We wished our Hindi friends a happy Diwali for the Festival of Lights. I had an office mate once from India who was amazed that I had heard of Diwali, one of the benefits of being a Unitarian. Last week, we said Happy Thanksgiving. And we said this especially to the checkout clerks at the grocery store. Here we are at the beginning of Hanukkah. Tonight, our Jewish friends will light their menorahs in remembrance. And all this week, we can go ahead and wish people Happy Hanukkah. We will start wishing folks a Merry Christmas. And soon there will be a joyous Kwanzaa and finally Happy New Year. This is the holiday season. Now, what is Hanukkah? Long ago, the Jewish people fought a foreign king to be free. Many people had to be brave. Many people had to hide from the king's soldiers. Many people had to do many hard things to reclaim their country. But finally they did, and finally they reclaimed their temple. And to celebrate and clean their temple, they needed to light their lamps. Now, at that time, they lit their lamps with oil, which is interesting because we light our chalice from a reservoir of oil also. It's not the same kind of oil, but it achieved the same purpose. It brought light to the darkness. Now, when they began filling their lamps, they found that they only had enough oil for one day. But then somehow a miracle happened. The lamps stayed alight for 8 days. They made that one small jug of oil last. And so began the celebration of Hanukkah, in remembrance of how that one small jug of oil lit the lamps for 8 days. We light a candle each night, an additional candle each night during Hanukkah for 8 days. As Betsy pointed out, the candle in the middle is the shamash, the helper candle, which is used to light the others. Delicious potato pancakes fried in oil called latkes are made. And if you will note, in the announcements, there will be a latke making activity soon. So you should look into that. Small gifts are given every night. And this is all in celebration of freedom and plenty. I like thinking about that helper candle in the middle. I like thinking about being a helper candle.
Does everybody know what this is? This is an Advent wreath. We will be lighting one of the candles on this wreath every Sunday for the next 4 weeks. In Christian churches, this is the season of Advent. Advent is a time of waiting, and we like to wait with our Christian friends. Do you know what we're all waiting for? We're waiting for the biggest birthday party in the whole world. Let me just tell you that I think that waiting is really hard. I have a hard time waiting for my birthday. It's even harder waiting for a baby to be born. My daughter just had a baby, and I had to wait almost a whole year after I knew she was coming. The last month, the last 4 weeks, was the hardest. Waiting is a good time for thinking and really paying attention to things. You can't make it go any faster, so you should use the time to think and get ready for whatever it is you're waiting for. Sometimes, when you have to wait a really long time for something, it means a lot more to you when it finally comes. This is what the candles tell us. The first 2 candles are for faith and hope. The pink candle is for joy. That one is lit third to remind us that we're halfway through to what we're waiting for. The last purple candle is for love. Today, though, we're going to light the first one. That one is for faith. Faith is really important when you're waiting. Faith is believing in things you can't be sure are going to happen. The whole Advent wreath is about faith. It's made out of evergreens because all the other leaves are dead now, and you have to have faith that they will come back in the spring. Evergreens like this boxwood stay green all winter to remind us to have faith that spring will come and make everything green. Next week's candle is for hope, and that is really important too. Anytime you're waiting, you need to have faith and keep hoping. If you have faith and hope and you wait really patiently, things have a way of working out right, even when it seems really dark and hopeless. The arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice. The candles remind us to keep hoping and have faith that the sun will come back in the morning. All the things that are broken or have gone wrong will be fixed. Let's light the candle now. I'm going to use the shamash to light this one too, to remind us that Christianity, another source of our living tradition, came from Judaism. Prepare a nest for the heart. Patch up the broken parts. Place more softness at the center. Sit and warm the home with prayer. Give the spirit of love a dwelling place. Please remain seated and listen to our second hymn.
Our reading this morning is from the words of Dory Janine Summers, Reflections on the Resurgence of Joy. How short the daylight hours have now become, how gray the skies, how barren seem the trees. A damp and chilling wind has gripped my mind and made me gloomy too. But there is that in me which reaches up toward light and laughter, bells and carolers, and knows that my religious myth and dream of reborn joy and goodness must be true. Because it speaks the truths of older myths that light returns to balance darkness, life surges in the evergreen and us. And babes are hope and saviors of the world, as miracles abound in common things. Rejoice and join in the gladness of Christmas.
As Linda pointed out, we've been celebrating holidays at MBUC throughout this fall. the anniversary of September 11th, the Day of the Dead, All Souls Day and All Saints Day, Veterans Day, and just last week, Thanksgiving Day. Why do we celebrate these holidays? And why do we celebrate them in church? In fact, why do we have holidays? Religious holidays, national holidays, civic holidays, cultural holidays. We celebrate holidays to tell the stories we want told and to celebrate the people in them. Holidays use customs and rituals like food and songs and games to keep alive the values that we celebrate through the stories. The stories don't have to be true, but they do have to be aspirational. Most of us don't believe the stories of Hanukkah or Christmas or Easter to be literally true. These are miracle stories, magical stories. But the stories keep alive the memories of their people, whoever those people may be. We use storytelling to pass down the values and ideas that we want to remember always. We use holidays to teach the stories to others and to spread them far and wide to anyone who will listen and cherish them with us. So, who makes these stories sacred then? The people whose stories they are. Some stories are universal, some are one of a kind. Christians regard the story of the birth of Jesus of Nazareth as a once-in-history event. Most Unitarians, following the lead of Sophia Lyon-Fahs, see the story as both the story of this special baby and the story of every baby. And we say with her every Christmas, each night a child is born is a holy night, a time for singing, a time for wondering, a time for worshiping. Christianity is built on the stories that the people who imagined this new faith, in particular of Tarsus, wanted to use to spread their gospel throughout the known world. Although it began as a sect of Judaism, Christianity grew rapidly during the lifetime of Paul of Tarsus, so there's a Freudian slip, and secured a foothold in Western civilization when it became the state religion of the Roman Empire in the 4th century. One of the ways in which Christianity sought to make itself irresistible in seeking converts was to superimpose its holidays on existing local holidays already celebrated by the Romans, such as the Feast of the Saturnalia, which went on for a week in late December. Ancient historian Sextus Africanus declared the date of Jesus' birth as December 25th by calculating it forward from his inferred conception date, just like an obstetrician. And he placed it smack on the day when the Romans celebrated Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, the birthday of the sun god Sol and the Persian god Mithra. Mirabile dictu. When the Romans took their empire across Europe all the way to Ireland and Wales, they sucked up the Celtic holiday of, I can never pronounce this, Samhain. Yeah. Don't speak Gaelic. Samhain was supposed to become All Saints' Day, but instead it persists as All Hallows' Eve. And Yule, the winter solstice, also Holly's birthday, which became Christmas. Early Christians were really excited to spread their new religion to people who had never heard of it. But evangelical Christianity had a dark side. When the Christians planted their holidays on top of existing holidays, they declared those holidays wicked. They told people to stop celebrating them on peril of their souls and called everyone who wasn't a Christian a pagan, making that word an ugly word and a hateful insult. They called all the pagans' sacred ceremonies evil magic. But guess what? The so-called pagan holidays survived. Here at MVUC, we celebrate both the winter solstice and Christmas. Those of us who identify as Jewish might also celebrate Hanukkah or Rosh Hashanah or Sukkot in the fall. Those of us who identify as Muslim might also observe Ramadan and Eid at the end. You get to eat. In the United States, we put in our own Constitution that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. The Unitarians and deists at the Constitutional Convention made sure of that, because Henry VIII had made the Anglican faith the national religion of England and created life-threatening difficulties for Catholics and evangelical Protestants that caused them to flee here to seek religious freedom. That's what the Pilgrims were doing here, although they turned right around and made things burdensome for everybody else. So much so that Charles Calvert, Lord Baltimore, created Maryland as a Catholic colony so that immigrants from Anglican England would have a safe place to live. King Charles II's 1663 charter for the colony of Rhode Island explicitly established religious toleration for all inhabitants. Baptists and Quakers, who had fled the persecutions of New England Puritans, were joined in Rhode Island in 1658 by a Jewish community at Newport, all of them seeking religious freedom. Because they can't get inside your head to find out your beliefs, one of the few ways people know you are practicing your religion is if you celebrate its holy days. Here in the U.S., you don't have to celebrate your holidays secretly, as people did in the catacombs of Rome or in the sewers of Warsaw. Well, maybe if you consider yourself Wiccan and want to celebrate Samhain or Beltane. We're not quite there yet, but at least it isn't against the law. With wreaths and evergreen trees and gifts from St. Nicholas, we in America have created a secular Christmas holiday from its original roots in Yule and reinstated it right back on top of the religious holiday. Because Christianity says, go ahead and celebrate our holidays. You can celebrate this secular Christmas even if you observe another faith or your partner does, and perhaps your family is a two-faith family. There's no sacrament attached. The ceremonies are family-centered. In fact, when I was growing up, Unitarian Christmas services were held on the Sunday before Christmas. There was no church on Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve was supposed to be spent with family. Christmas is the world's biggest birthday party for one of the world's greatest religious leaders. You don't have to believe he was the Son of God to get into that. Buddhists celebrate the Buddhist birthday. Chinese people celebrate the birthday of Confucius. You celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday. It's pretty much our only religious holiday. The idea for this service came to me when somebody called a holiday a fake holiday. There's no such thing as real holidays and fake holidays. All holidays are made up, including the religious ones. They're made up so that every people, including every religion, has a way to tell its stories. Kwanzaa was made up because Malanga Karanga believed the people of African origin needed a holiday to replace those that had been taken away and lost. Is it less sacred to those who celebrate because it was created in the 60s? Is Juneteenth sacred only now? Wasn't it sacred before white people knew it existed? There are religious holidays and secular holidays, ancient holidays and new holidays, your holidays and my holidays, but every holiday is real because it celebrates something that people hold sacred. Honor and sacrifice, light in darkness, new life in the earth and in every cradle, freedom in Juneteenth as much as in Passover, a momentary triumph of good over evil, and in the end, they are all about love. Valentine's Day, the most commercialized of all commercialized holidays, celebrates not the martyrdom of St. Valentine, lost in ancient church history, but the transformative, relentless, and undeniable power of love. All holidays are about love and joy and hope, longing and sorrow, reconciliation and peace. Holidays are holy days because of the way they make you feel.
Unitarian Church continues to share the plate with committed organizations that you, our members, have chosen. During the month of November, we will share the plate with No Child Goes Hungry, a registered 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the elimination of childhood hunger, one kid, one meal at a time. Founded by our dear friend, the Reverend Karen Rasmussen, more than 70 grants have already been given out this year alone, with funds donated by churches, private organizations, and individuals. We invite this gathered community to offer whatever you are most comfortable with in spirit and financial generosity for the mission of our church community. If you would like to write a check for the offering, please make it to MBUC and in the memo line indicate how you would like it to be used. You can also follow the link now showing in the order of service or on your screen to make a one-time or recurring payment.
I'll be home for Christmas. You can plan
fabulous. Maybe it's much too early in the game. But I thought I'd ask you just the same. What are you doing New Year's Eve? Wonder whose arms will hold you good and tight when it's exactly 12 o'clock that night, welcoming in the new year, New Year's Eve. Maybe I'm crazy to suppose I'd ever be the one you chose out of 1,000 invitations you'll receive. But if I stand one little chance, here comes the jackpot question in advance. What are you doing New Year's Eve? But in case I stand one little chance, here comes the jackpot question in advance. What are you doing New Year's Eve?
Other than Christmas, our national holidays are not religious in origin, but that doesn't mean they're not sacred. What makes holidays sacred? Not all sacred holidays are religious, so who makes holidays sacred? The people who created and observe them. They get to make the rules. They get to say, join us, this holiday is for everyone. They also have a right to say, be a guest, be an ally, be an advocate, be a defender, but don't invite yourself to our holiday celebration, intrude on it, borrow it, poach it, or steal it outright. This holiday is sacred to us, and you have to be granted the right to celebrate it. I'm always happy to be a guest at a Seder, but I personally don't think we should be performing them in UU churches unless the celebrant is Jewish and wishes to share the ceremony with UU friends who are not. Protestant religions are evangelical, but Catholicism and Judaism are not. You can't just wake up one morning and decide you're Jewish. It doesn't work that way. You can be born into the faith, in fact, automatically if your mother's Jewish, or you can convert, but conversion is difficult. You must study, perform rituals, and make promises. It's serious, not to be taken lightly, and Catholicism is the same way. You must study the faith, and its sacraments are available to you only after you have joined it through baptism. When UUs go to Christian churches, we're free to take communion at a Protestant church because most practice open communion, and even if they require that you be a baptized Christian, they don't check. We don't take communion at Catholic churches because the Eucharist is a sacrament and requires baptism in the Catholic faith. According to the Reverend Marjorie Bowen-Sweetley, who wrote extensively and deeply on this subject, one of the most widespread assumptions of white supremacy is that the images, symbols, rituals, practices, and/or religious expressions of any culture can be freely appropriated by another, with or without permission. In their search not only for meaningful beliefs but for meaningful practices, UUs sometimes transplant other religion ceremonies without having earned the right to perform them. In one particular essay, Cornrows, Kwanzaa, and Confusion, Bowen Sweetley recounts an incident in which she invites a colleague, a rabbi, to a celebration of the High Holy Days at a UU church. Receives an arch refusal, and is educated with passion about the fact that such a service is a Jewish service and should never be appropriated because the "we" in the liturgy refers to the Hebrew people, no one else. Bowen Sweetley writes, cultural appropriation is problematic in part because it is rooted in the existing system of white power and privilege and is based on the assumption that indiscriminate intercultural borrowing, transfers, or outright theft are okay. We include in our national holidays the sacred holiday of only one faith, Christianity, and Protestant Christianity at that, which is pretty funny because the Puritans didn't celebrate either Christmas or Easter. The Puritans wanted to abolish all references to pagan gods and popish rituals. They like to say, those for whom all days are holy should have no holidays. The Bible didn't mention holidays, they reasoned, so saints' days and feast days were nothing more than Roman inventions. Catholicism, however, says, hey, come ahead and celebrate with us. On St. Patrick's Day, everybody's Irish. On Christmas, St. Nicholas comes to visit all the children throughout the world, whether they're Christian or not. And guess what? You don't have to believe in him to realize that the gifts he brings are joy to the world, a sense of wonder, and holiday magic. You can't oppose a religious holiday on others either. We got that one into the Constitution. No creches on public property, and you can't force people to sing religious carols in public schools, although they were doing it when I was growing up in the South in the 60s. But sacred secular holidays are a little more difficult. Frederick Douglass reminded us long ago that enslaved people had no reason to celebrate Independence Day. His words in What to a Slave is the 4th of July speak for themselves. The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me. The sunlight that brought life and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. To drag a man in fetters into the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems were inhuman mockery and sacrilegious irony. Do you mean, citizens, to mock me by asking me to speak today? Indigenous people also have no reason to celebrate Columbus Day or the discovery of the Americas. The folks in Latin America figured this out quite some time ago. They celebrate October 12th as El Día de la Raza, which celebrates the creation of the Latine people, or a day of respect for cultural diversity, or depends on the country, the day of the encounter of two worlds, or the day of indigenous people and intercultural dialogue. The name of the holiday in Venezuela for years has been the Day of the Indigenous Resistance. We can celebrate that holiday too, as it is a political holiday, not a religious one, though clearly sacred. We assign sacred value to many of America's national holidays, so we can easily slide from Columbus Day to various forms of Indigenous Peoples Day. A birthright Unitarian like me honors all indigenous peoples because that's what the first, second, and third principles mean. But we also cannot say no to Italian Americans who observe Columbus Day and to whom it is sacred that they cannot celebrate because Columbus was someone who did bad things. So was Thomas Jefferson. No one can take this holiday away from Italian Americans because it started out as the Martin Luther King Day of its time. When Benjamin Harrison first proclaimed Columbus Day in 1892, by the way, did you know that the Pledge of Allegiance was written for that first Discovery Day? It was created to honor the most famous Italian anybody could think of. I mean, Columbus was Italian, but he was working for the Spanish, and they were the ones who colonized the New World, not the Italians. But the goal was to try to put an end to the widespread lynching of Italian Americans, 11 of whom had been the target of a mass lynching in New Orleans that very year. At the time, all Europeans of Mediterranean descent, including the Romani, and all those of Semitic descent were considered people of color, as are many people of Spanish descent today. But there was bitter racial animosity toward Italians in particular, because the English had distrusted the Italians for centuries. Oh, and they were Catholic. Strike two. Oh, and they were immigrants. Strike three. The president made Italian Americans a promise. Columbus Day stands as a reminder to all immigrants that their unique history and culture will be recognized and to affirm the United States as a nation of immigrants. When this story was lost, the holiday was lost. It became a celebration of a different story. The same is true of Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is a sacred, secular holiday in the U.S. Not only did George Washington designate it as a national holiday to celebrate, truly, divine providence and grace, but the ways we celebrate it are just like the ways religious holidays are celebrated. Families travel long distances to gather and eat a special meal accompanied by special prayers. But we are struggling with this holiday now because both of these stories of immigration are also stories of conquest. Let me share with you a section of Martina Espada's poem, Thanksgiving. This was the first Thanksgiving with my wife's family. Her father stared into the mashed potatoes and saw a white battleship floating in the gravy. He began a soliloquy about the new Navy missiles fired across miles of ocean, how they could jump into the smokestack of a battleship. Now, in Korea, he said, I was a gunner, and the people there ate kimchi, and it really stinks. Mother complained that no one was eating the creamed onions. Eat, Daddy. The creamed onions looked like eyeballs, I thought, and then said, I wish I had missiles like that. Daddy laughed a 1950s horror movie mad scientist laugh, and he told me he didn't have a missile, but he had his own cannon. Daddy, eat the canned yams, Mother hissed, as if he were a liquored CIA spy telling secrets about military hardware to some Puerto Rican janitor he met in a bar. I'm a toolmaker. I made the cannon myself, he announced, and left the table. Daddy's family has been here in the Connecticut Valley since 1680, Mother said. There were Indians here once, but they left. When I started dating her daughter, Mother called me a half-black. But now she spooned candied yams onto my plate. I nibbled at the candied yams. I remembered my own Thanksgivings in the Bronx, turkey with arroz y habichuelas and plátanos, and countless cousins swaying to boogaloo on the record player or roaring at my grandmother's Spanish punchlines in the kitchen, the glowing of her cigarette like a firefly lost in the city. For years, I thought everyone ate rice and beans with turkey at Thanksgiving. Daddy returned to the table with a cannon, steering the black steel barrel. Does that cannon go boom, I asked. I fire it in the back at the tombstones, he said. That cemetery bought up all our farmland during the Depression. Now we only have the house. He stared and said nothing, then glanced up suddenly like a ghost had tickled his ear. Want to see me fire it? He grinned. Daddy, fire the cannon after dessert, said Mother. If I fire the cannon, I have to take the cannonballs out first. He tilted the cannon downward, and cannonballs dropped from the barrel, thudding on the floor and rolling across the brown braided rug. Grandmother praised the turkey's thighs and said she would bring leftovers home to feed her Congo gray parrot. I walked with Daddy to the backyard, past the bullet holes in the door and his pickup truck with the Confederate license plate. He swiveled the cannon around to face the tombstones on the other side of the backyard fence. This way, if I hit anybody, they're already dead. He stuffed half a charge of gunpowder into the cannon and lit the fuse. From the dining room, Mother yelled, "Daddy, no!" And then the battlefield rumbled under my feet. My head thundered. Smoke drifted over the tombstones. Daddy laughed. And I thought, when the first drunken pilgrim dragged out the cannon at the first Thanksgiving, that's when the Indians left. My ancestors arrived in Massachusetts in 1630. Too late for the first Thanksgiving, but plenty soon enough to use the concept of settler privilege to repurpose land belonging to the Massachusetts and build a colony on the Shawmut Peninsula, an area that eventually became the city of Boston. The first Thanksgiving, 9 years earlier, had been an awkward attempt by early colonists to thank the Wampanoag for teaching them how to grow corn, beans, and squash, the three sisters, together to maximize their yield in the poor soil of coastal New England. The Wampanoag brought the venison, which is probably why we only hear about fowl. Wild turkeys are fat and slow and easy to hunt even for beginners. By 1630, diseases the settlers brought with them had killed many of the original, but many more of the native people, making it easier for John Winthrop, Thomas Dudley, my ancestors, and their fellow Puritans simply to claim ownership by squatter privilege on the occupied land, now that they had learned how to subsist on it and they didn't need the indigenous people's agricultural expertise to keep them from dying of starvation. I once heard the word forgiveness defined very powerfully as abandoning the hope of obtaining a better past. A better past is not possible here. It's what it is. But we can ask for forgiveness. I ask you to listen to the voice of contemporary Native American poet Allison Adele Hedgecock, who invites us to acknowledge the past, own it, and honor it so that we can move forward together. I invite you, as I read, into a time of quiet reflection. America, I sing back what sung you in. Before America began to sing, I sung her to sleep, held her cradleboard, wept her into day. My song gave her creation, prepared her delivery, held her severed cord beautifully beaded. My song helped her stand, held her hand for first steps, nourished her very being, fed her, placed her three sisters strong. My blood veined rivers, painted pipestone quarries, circled canyons while she made herself maiden fine. But here I am, here, I remain high on each and every peak, carefully rumbling her great underbelly, prepared to pour forth singing, and sing again I will, as I have always done. When I call her back to cradle, call her to peer into waters, to behold herself in dark and light, day and night, call her to sing along, call her to mature, to envision, then she will make herself over. My song will make it so. When she grows far past her self-considered purpose, I will sing her back, sing her back. I will sing, oh, I will, I do. America, I sing back what sung you in. So may it be, blessed be, amen. So, what holidays do you celebrate? Well, we don't have any of our own, really. We celebrate the Protestant holidays of Christmas and Easter, but of course Unitarians have always had a big problem with Easter. When I was growing up, we did Christmas with lessons and carol services that told the story with chunks of Luke, poetry, and beautiful music. It was years before I learned that most of the Christmas carols have more than one verse, because we didn't sing the later verses. You can get 3 verses out of We Three Kings or the First Noel, but Hark the Herald Angels Sing goes off the rails after verse 1. Luckily, several Christmas carols were written by Unitarians. Most notably, It Came Upon a Midnight Clear. We've needed music for hundreds of years, and not all the lyrics are acceptable. The theological points they make and the story they tell are exactly why people left Christian churches to come here. We sang everything we could in Latin. Watch this. Here's the power of long-term memory in the elderly. Adeste fideles laetum triumphante venite, venite in Bethlehem. Natum videte regem angelorum, and venite adoremus, venite adoremus, venite adoremus, Dominum. I used to call the others the Iowa City words. Easter was hugely problematic. It was typically done as mostly music, none of the lyrics containing the word Christ, a brief obituary for Jesus of Nazareth. Nobody had a problem with his death as long as he stayed in the cave. Child dedications, flowers for the children, and a big chorus of Now the Earth Awakes Again. Many services featured ceremonies drawn from earth-centered religions that celebrated the spring equinox, some involving the sacrificial death of male fertility gods such as Tammuz and Damu, and the celebration of female fertility goddesses such as Estre, from whom the holiday gets its name. Did you know that only German and English speakers call this holiday Easter? Most other languages use some word of the Aramaic word Pascha for Passover. After all, Jesus was in Jerusalem to celebrate the holiday. What Christians call the Last Supper was a Passover Seder. But neither the Jewish holiday of Pesach or the earth-centered holidays over which Easter was superimposed belong to us, either as a matter of faith or as a matter of religious history. However, when we merged with the Universalist Church in 1961, we brought Trinitarians into the denomination along with Unitarians. That made things more complicated. Universalists are Christian. Their holiday is theirs. Once the decision was made to merge, hymns like O Sacred Head Now Wounded and Jesus Christ is Risen Today slipped into the gray hymnal. I learned that Lo, the Earth Awakes Again has another whole set of lyrics. Beyond Christmas and Easter, we can celebrate any holidays we choose to make sacred as long as we have not appropriated them without permission. Virtually every world religion except Christianity has a New Year holiday, and they're celebrated throughout the year. Most are open to everyone. Every new day is the beginning of a new year. Every night a child is born is a holy night. We can make up new holidays. Every nation, culture, and religion does. We can change holidays as the story changes, or as we want to change it. Armistice Day became Veterans Day because we wanted to celebrate patriotic service rather than a military victory. Since in wars, and I say this as a 27-year Army wife, in wars, everyone loses. Outdated and offensive holidays can be scrapped, as our Latina friends have done with Discovery Day, but only those whose holiday it is can put it to rest. We cannot oppose our holidays on other holidays by force, as the early Christians did with All Saints' Day, or ban other people from celebrating their holidays, as the Puritans did with May Day. The principles forbid it. Everyone has an unalienable right to their beliefs. So we should celebrate with joy the holidays we believe in, because we believe the stories they tell are worth hearing, the values they teach are worth preserving, the lessons they teach, including the bad parts, are worth our attention, and the memories they evoke are worth cherishing. Let's take a moment just to listen to Holly and Yvonne and just feel.
Pennies in a stream, falling leaves a sycamore, moonlight in Vermont. I see finger waves, ski trails on a mountainside, snow light in Vermont, telegraph cables They sing down the highway and travel each bend in the road. People who meet in this romantic setting are so hypnotized by the lovely evening summer breeze, warbling of a meadow lark, moonlight in Vermont. Evening summer breeze, warbling of a meadow lark, moonlight in Vermont. You and I and moonlight in Vermont.
Okay, we have a little imagination here. We have to imagine that we've got a few families with children here in our service today, and so that we can hear what they were talking about after they left. Karen and Esther were in church with their families on the Sunday after Thanksgiving. After the service, Karen remarked to her friend, "I had never realized that they had an Advent wreath here. They had one in the church we used to go to, but that wasn't a Unitarian church. I've gotten used to lighting a chalice every Sunday, but candles for Advent surprised me a little." Esther replied, "Yes, and we always have a menorah too. This year, Hanukkah is coming really early, but I really appreciated that Miss Betsy only lighted the shamash today and knew that Hanukkah really doesn't begin until sundown tonight." She added, "You know, my mother is Jewish, and that makes me Jewish too, even though my dad is a Unitarian. I feel really lucky that I can be part of both religions. My favorite Jewish holiday is actually Purim, though, because my name is Esther, just like the queen whose life is celebrated then. I was actually born on that holiday, which is why I was named Esther. I think of it as kind of my holiday, even when it's not the same day as my birthday." "Well," said Karen, "birthdays are celebrated by lighting candles, so your birthday is kind of a holiday anyway. Lots of special days that aren't holidays for everyone include candles, like birthdays and weddings and anniversaries." "Yes," said Esther thoughtfully, "happy times, and sometimes sad ones too. Before the church had to shut down because of COVID, people used to light candles during the offering for what they called joys and concerns. And next Sunday, we'll be able to light both the second Advent candle and the Hanukkah candles too. And the following day will still be Hanukkah, but it's also St. Nicholas Day. Of course, there aren't any candles for that, but it does kind of remind us that it was because St. Nick left gifts in people's shoes that we got the idea of hanging up stockings for Santa Claus." Karen added, And there's another holiday celebrated with candles coming up after St. Nicholas Day, St. Lucia Day. We always celebrate that at our house because it's a Scandinavian holiday. And our grandparents came from Sweden. On St. Lucia Day, the youngest daughter of the house wears a crown of candles and brings breakfast in bed to her mom. I got to do that for a few years, but now my little sister is old enough. So it's her turn. Of course, we use electric candles for safety, but they're still candles. And it's kind of fun that her name really is Lucy. An older woman who had been listening to the girls spoke up. I had a different experience with Advent candles when I was your age. She said, we didn't have a wreath or colored candles, and it wasn't in church, it was at home. We had a long sideboard with a wall mirror above it and 4 tall white candles in candle holders. During December, we lit the candles each week, but we did something else too. The first week, we put a stable in the center with a cow and some smaller animals in it. On the second week, we added Mary and Joseph and a donkey. The next week, they moved to the stable, and some shepherds and sheep appeared in the distance. And the fourth week, the baby was placed in the manger. The shepherds came close to the stable, and 3 kings and a camel appeared. By then, all 4 candles were lit. Their light was reflected in the mirror, and that was all the light there was in the room. It was magical. But as far as birthdays go, I don't think there's a cake big enough to hold all the candles I would need. So on my cake, they put a candle that looks like a question mark. I say that shows I'm a UU.
Our closing hymn is not actually a Christmas carol. It celebrates the ancient holiday of Yule.
Chalice found in the order of service and in our hearts, and remain standing for the benediction. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I invite you, after the benediction, to be seated to listen to our postlude. Go in peace, speak the truth, give thanks each day, Respect the earth and her creatures. Live simply. Be of service. Be guided by your faith and not your fear. Go lightly on your path. Walk in a sacred manner. Amen.
Amen.